I saw a UFO over the ocean off the coast of Santa Barbara a couple months ago, and it's been bothering me ever since. I'm going to tell you the story, and I'm not just open to interpretation, I am begging for it. Someone, please provide a logical explanation for what I saw. Thank God I wasn't the only one to witness it either, because if I had been the only one to see it, by now I would have gaslit myself into thinking that I saw nothing at all. So please help me. First things first, and I'm afraid this is where I'm going to lose some of you. You're going to be like, okay, well, that explains it, but no. Please listen to me. I had been awake for a long time. I had just traveled 12 hours from Boston to Santa Barbara to see my friend Claire. Also, at the time of seeing the UFO, both of us we had been ingesting the za, so to speak. And that's why I'm afraid people aren't going to believe me, because they're going to be like, okay, you were zooted. Like, you're just seeing things. But no, if you're a za ingester, you know it doesn't work like that. Anyways, it is my first day there. My flight landed at like noon, and then we went to the beach for sunset later that night. It was there that we ingested some za, and I saw the most beautiful sunset of my life. Like, actually, are you kidding me? This was so beautiful in person that I was crying. Something I'd like you to observe here is how there's no fog anywhere. And listen, I am not a meteorologist. I am going to need a weather person to help confirm some of my theories about this whole thing, because I am talking straight out of my ass. But Claire made a point to say it is so clear today. She's like, there's no fog today, and usually there's fog. Sometimes you can't even see the Channel Islands across the ocean. Those islands, actually, this was exactly where we were when she said normally you can't see the islands across the way because there's so much fog, but today is such a clear day. Anyway, something I want you to notice is that on the horizon. Do you see that? It almost looks like a boat, but it's not. It is an oil rig, and there's a bunch of them off the coast of Santa Barbara, but this one is like all on its own up by like Isla Vista off the coast. I'm telling you about this thing for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, it is going to provide a size comparison for what we saw. This was big enough for me to see off of the plane. When my plane was descending, I saw this off the coast of the ocean, and I was like, is that a boat? That's a huge boat. But the more I looked at it, I was like, oh, it doesn't have a wake. It's not moving. And then I saw a tiny pinprick of an actual boat that was moving, and I was like, oh, this is clearly not a boat. Then when we were sitting here, I asked Claire, like, what the hell is that? Is that a boat? I saw it from the plane. And she's like, no, it's an oil rig. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. Also, when you Google Maps it, it is an oil rig. It has a name. Anyways, we are sitting here, and I need you to use your imagination station for just a second. I need you to close your eyes and picture you're standing on a beach. Just think of how, like, vast and endless the horizon is. From where we were sitting, I turned to my right and took this photo. So, like, that was to the right of me. To the left was just, like, endless horizon. So again, we are sitting there, zooted, watching the sunset. You know how a lot of people will leave right after the main event of the sunset, but if you stick around for like 10 more minutes, you get just like another beautiful array of colors? That's what we did. So most of the people had left the beach. It was just like us left sitting on the beach. This is what we were looking at when it happened. I took this photo immediately after it happened so that I would never forget what the horizon looked like. All of a sudden, we notice that a fog has rolled in pretty quickly. And this is where I'm like, I don't know how the weather works. This thick, dense fog appears over the ocean in like minutes. In the distance, like we can no longer see the islands, but it's behind the oil rig. That is when it happens. And what I'm about to describe to you next, this whole thing happened in like 10 to 15 seconds, okay? It happened so quickly. I see something moving on the horizon off to my left. Claire is telling me a story, so she's talking as this is happening, and I see it move out of the corner of my eye at first, and my brain registers it as a boat because it's moving on top of the water like a boat does. But then I'm like, that's too big to be a boat. That thing is huge, and it's moving hundreds of miles an hour. It is half in the fog and half out of the fog, moving at incredible speed. In a couple of seconds, it moves all the way from the left side of the horizon to almost the middle of my field of vision. And I go, Claire, do you see that? Am I crazy? What the hell is that? And I point it out, and I point it out as it's moving across the ocean. It was going like this fast, like relative to the picture that I have here, it was moving like this quickly, which is crazy fast. It gets to like right around here near the oil rig, and that's when I can see the size comparison of how big this thing is. It is, again, behind the oil rig in the fog, and it is at least 2 to 3 times the width of the size of the oil rig, which again looks like this. So the thing I saw was like that big and probably that tall, and it has a weird like hump in the middle. I have like my arm out in front of me pointing at it, like tracking it across the ocean because I need her to see it, because I can't, like, it's all happening so fast. I can't understand what I'm looking at. In my brain, I thought it was a giant squid. My thought process literally went from, oh, it's a boat. No, it's too fast and big to be a boat. It's a giant squid. And then I was like, giant squids go in the water. not on top of it. I drew a picture of it and I'll show you that in a second, but it had like a weird, in my brain, I was like, it's a head and arms. But it was skating across the water so fast. It wasn't bobbing up and down like a boat kind of does. It didn't look like, I mean, you couldn't see the wake, obviously, from where we were sitting because it was way too far away, but it didn't look like a boat. It was like bigger than a cruise ship. And it was going like faster than an airplane. I'm pointing at it. Claire sees it too. And she's like, what the hell? And we just watch it disappear into the sunset, literally. And then just dead silence for like a couple seconds. I'm like, what the hell was that? Claire just goes, was that the Loch Ness Monster? Which made me laugh so much because I didn't even say my giant squid theory. She just was like, that looked like the Loch Ness Monster. I immediately take out my phone and I start drawing what I saw. And this is like the world's worst picture and you're gonna have to turn your phone to the side to see it. This is supposed to be the ocean line and this is it like hovering on top. It had this weird bump, but then you could like see underneath it. It wasn't like flat on the water, does that make sense? But it was like skating across the top of the water. So I draw this, I show it to Claire, and she says, I only saw, I'm gonna cover the part that she didn't see. She only saw like this and this. She didn't see this part because this part was angled more into the fog. This is so hard to describe, which is why I have so many pictures. And I understand also why people don't take photos of UFOs when they see them. Everyone's always like, why didn't you just take a photo? Because when it's happening, you're like, am I having a stroke? You like don't think quick enough when something like that is happening. But yeah, Claire's like, I didn't see the front part, but I saw this like bubbly part and then the other end of it. This is a picture I took on the plane, okay? Just so much water. How did it move so quickly? It wasn't a plane. It was not a plane. There were no lights on it. It was like a dark gray color and it moved all the way across the hundreds of miles an hour, but not a boat, not a plane. And why did the fog appear right before it got there? So then I start Googling, obviously, and I end up on like a weird side of Reddit. And this is where we're going a little off the rails. Apparently, there is a decade-long theory that states that somewhere between Malibu and Catalina Island is a alien base, like underwater. And that would have been the direction that this was coming from. It was coming from the Malibu area and it was going up the coast of California. Claire and I leave the beach, we go back to her place, and we tell our Discord friends about what we had just seen. One of them, I can't remember who, sorry guys, says, have you ever heard of the Nimitz incident? And we were both like, no. And they're like, yeah, it's this UFO sighting where like there was a Navy pilot in a plane who saw like a strange object kind of similar to what you described, like moving weird all over the water. So we Google it, sure enough, 2004, tic-tac shaped object skating over the coast of Southern California. But there's a video. And supposedly, allegedly, this is the object that was caught on video by that Navy pilot, which looks a lot like what Claire thinks she saw. This little like nugget thing. In what I saw, it was this, and then it had like an extra thing off the side, but it had like little feet that were pointing down. And one of the only other things I could find were people talking about how during alien encounters, sometimes, according to some alien people on the internet, UFOs will use existing natural fog as a cover, like so that they can move about more freely, or they will produce, the crafts themselves will produce fog to use as a cover. Anyways, I don't know what I saw. I don't know what that was. Whatever you do not tell me it was a boat, because that's the one thing I know it wasn't, was a boat. The only other thing I can think of that it would be is a military craft of some sort. But what kind? What was that? Also, I don't know if I said this already. The date was March 24th, 2025 at sunset. It was March 24th. Can someone give me an explanation? It can't be boat, because it's not boat. There's no boat that big or fast. Please. Anyways, it's been plaguing my thoughts for the past couple months, and please someone help me understand. If you made it all the way to the end of this, I love you. Okay, bye.